Good evening, and welcome to the State of the School 2022. Tonight, several people will talk to you about Greenvale to give you a better understanding of certain operations of the school, our current standing, and our future. To start, the state of the school is excellent. How is that defined? Well, these days it starts with the fact that we're open. Next, we know that we have a strong enrollment, exceptional outcomes when it comes to our graduates, a sound financial footing, and a clear and bright future. With that said, excellence does not mean we are satisfied. We know that there is still work to be done to maintain our identity and constant adjustment to the moment that must happen. Soon, you will hear from different board members and me to highlight the work of the board, understand the finances, and get an update on our important strategic planning work. To start, let me turn it over to Chris Garcia, the current board chair.
Jesse, indeed, the state of the school is excellent. Thanks to Jesse's hard work and the hard work of the school's excellent faculty and staff. The good news tonight is that there's lots positive that's happening here that we have to report. Our challenge is to share it with you in only 60 minutes. So let's get to it, with apologies in advance if it feels at times like we are moving at the speed of light. By way of brief preview, you will hear a great deal tonight about the future of GVS, which is blindingly bright. For example, we are excited to discuss with you for the first time in detail our strategic plan. Now, many of you have already participated in the strategic planning process by submitting surveys to our strategic planning consultant, Greenwich Leadership Partners, or GLP. Thank you for participating in that important process. More on that to come. We will discuss what we've learned from those responses and the strategic planning process that will occur through the spring based on the foundation that those responses provide. And we're also excited to talk to you about our Centennial. Cue applause. Okay, I'm in an empty arm. Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, all 5 of you present. Thank you. We're excited to talk to you about our Centennial tonight, because yes, that's right. Next year, Greenvale turns 100. We will preview some of the planning that will go into celebrating that significant milestone. We'll also talk to you about some exciting developments with respect to your Board of Trustees, developments that I believe will position us for tremendous success in the future. And finally, we will discuss the financial condition of the school, which is excellent and provides a superior foundation for yet another 100 years of success. But before we get to all of that, I'm going to turn it back to Jesse to talk about some of the exciting things happening here on campus.
Thanks, Chris. Let me begin with some key statistics about the school. We are 448 students strong. This is the biggest we've been in 10 years. We have a total of 290 families, with 93 new students this year. We have 72 amazing teachers, with 59 other employees, including the administration, support staff, and non-instructional staff. All of this translates to roughly 3 sections per grade, with a few of the younger grades having 4 due to COVID. When asked why they choose GVS, new families cited the following traits most often: strength of our education, kids being challenged to be their best, an appropriate balance of academics, activities, and play, knowing each child, character education, and a sense of tradition balanced with innovation. We continue to see strong interest in the school, with our nursery program already full for the next school year. One topic we cannot ignore, but we do not want to dwell on tonight, is COVID. There has been a precipitous drop in cases as of late, and we remain committed to being open and safe. As a quick reminder, we must follow the Department of Health regulations as they come out. We can see how quickly guidance and circumstances shift. Just look at today with the shifts from both courts and local agencies. My goal is to have every child in school every day in as normal a fashion as possible, while keeping everyone safe. It is also my sincere hope to see all of you on campus soon. With that said, I want to thank the teachers for their tremendous dedication to the classroom. The start of January was not easy, as a number of teachers were out sick, requiring other colleagues to help in spades. And thank you to Kathy Ionata, Kelly Flink, and Heather Wagner for managing all this on a daily basis under the strong leadership of Narinder Bala, whose endless work around this area has been nothing short of outstanding. In spite of these extra several layers of stress for teachers and administrators, I remain filled with hope and optimism that comes directly from the classrooms. Teaching and learning is a clear focus of our seasoned faculty and one embraced equally by our new teachers. They come to us with strong backgrounds and a deep understanding of educational practices, while entirely buying into our commitment to knowing every child. Now, I know you have not been on campus as much as either of us want, so we thought we would give you a taste of the ways in which we continue to prioritize teaching and learning each and every day. Let's watch this video together of some of our great teachers.
This is my first year at the Greenvale School. It's been wonderful. I think the kids are really engaged with everything they're learning and with each other.
Being new to Greenvale, what do you notice? I noticed that in my class this year, they truly feel like a family.
I see slow but deliberate and dedicated learning happening. School is the bridge between home and this academic, bigger picture of their life.
I'll talk, I think, about like the morning meeting. What it is the kids will come in the morning and then we gather and they're excited about getting together. And there's time for exchange, like their buddies might say something or I might say something and things could be funny. For example, it could be a piece of art or it could be a page from the newspaper. And then the kids, they gather around and they look at it, and what I'm really looking for is their perspectives.
It's important to think about, okay, I have a group of learners here in front of me who all learn differently. So what are ways we can tap into kids' strengths to help them advance and move further? Asset-based rather than deficit-based.
The students are very engaged with the collaboration between technology and library, taking both those spheres and putting them together. We teach students how to live in a world where there is an overload of information. We teach them to navigate it and then be able to express that and create new learning.
Everything I do in the lab is based on improving children working with their hands and continually developing their motor skills. In kindergarten, they have built harmonicas. In the first grade, they're working on electric cars. In the third and fourth grade, they're also using soldering guns. In the fifth and sixth grades, we're working with robotics. And in the seventh grade, one section has just completed a hydrogen-powered car.
A lot of times teachers, and especially early educators and arts teachers, will talk about the difference between product versus process.
My goal is always to kind of get away from perfectionism and engage with experimentation. That's kind of the goal, is to have them implement, a portion of their personality, their hopes, their dreams, things that they mull over, things that they think about.
How can I cater to what the kids really crave? So rather than just being the giver of all knowledge, I make more room for conversation because the kids learn best from each other.
Students need to be investigators. They act like historians themselves. Look at my classroom as like a mini democracy and a community where they could engage in civil discourse in a polite, respectful way, build on each other's ideas, but also expose each other to different viewpoints.
When a child is comfortable with themselves in a community and can communicate with the other children, with the teachers, they're going to be more successful in those academics, getting the answers to the questions that they have.
So basically just getting them to be curious about something, anything, and then figuring out a way to make it come to fruition.
They're all really curious, and they're curious about each other's ideas too.
Ultimately, it's almost like a self-esteem thing. Like when you have something successful that you can actually physically hold in your own two hands and walk away with it, like it's a real boost.
And as a teacher, you feed off of that. The experience that you know, the excitement that they generate in the classroom generates back to you as well.
What we've changed here is the process. And so I believe that the children are much more connected, much more excited to the material.
I think we're doing an incredible job at meeting children at where they are, taking them to greater heights, but also supporting them when they need it.
I mean, I don't think I can underestimate, or understate the impact that COVID has had on the students. There's a part of me that feels, deep sadness about that.
As a parent myself and a working mom, I know how hard this has been for everybody.
We do understand that it's been hard as well for our parent body, which is such an integral part of our community here.
We all wish that there could be more parent involvement in the classrooms and the buildings in our community.
Shout out to them for maintaining support. It's inspiring to see what these children, what my students, what our kids can face, can come to terms with.
I think it's something that Greenvale's really amazing at, is building that strong sense of camaraderie and really making classes feel like you're not just a class at school, this is something beyond that. Sometimes it's difficult to pinpoint who started this year and who started, when they were 3 years old, because there's such a sense of bonding in the classes and they're so intensely connected.
We have a team of teachers, learning specialists, and the parents, and we're a team, and we really work together to make sure every child is the best version of themselves that they can be.
I see happiness.
I love what this video shows. The importance of community, how teachers always think about the act of learning from the student's perspective, and happiness. All matter, all of these things matter, and they all build student engagement, which to me is a cornerstone of the Greenvale experience. This happens because of our excellent teachers. The window into our teachers' perspective transitions well into some of the most important work a school can do every 5 to 10 years: strategic planning. Why is this so important? It is the map of our future that we are collectively making that will anchor all of our decisions moving forward. The timing of the strategic plan could not be better. We're about to celebrate our 100th anniversary. We're ready to move on from the grip that COVID has had on us for the last 2 years. The committee, chaired by Jeff Bisconi and Narinda Bala, has been hard at work since the start of the school year. A critical step in this process was the survey you filled out this fall, the results of which I will highlight later. Let's hear from Jeff about the process and the work of the group.
Thank you, Jesse. I'm excited to be here and share a little bit about our strategic planning effort with you all. What a tremendous moment for Greenvale. We're approaching our 100th anniversary, In spite of a global pandemic, the school is in great shape. And what an atmosphere here tonight in the theater with the 5 of us. So what is the strategic plan? The strategic plan is a blueprint that sets out how we will build for the future at Greenvale. It acts as a guide for investments we will make and changes we will implement to ensure that Greenvale remains one of the preeminent independent schools in the country. As part of our process, we will revisit the mission and the vision of Greenvale. We want to confirm that what we do and what we aspire to be appropriately reflect our values today and the educational needs of our children, parents, and faculty in the future. The plan will examine areas such as teaching and learning. What are the principles that guide learning at Greenvale? Traditions and community. What are the mechanisms by which we form a strong sense of belonging at Greenvale? And character formation. What role does character formation play in the Greenvale experience? At the end of our process, our goal is to produce a vision for Greenvale that is both clear and aspirational, accompanied by a set of concrete steps that we will take towards that vision. So how do we get there? What does the process look like? Well, earlier this year, we set up a strategic design team. That team is comprised of faculty, administrators, and a small group of board members. As Jesse said, Narinder and I chair that group. We have also engaged a third-party consulting firm, Greenwich Leadership Partners, to help guide us. We interviewed several firms, and GLP stood out among the group. They've worked with a number of the top independent schools across the country. Jesse's going to share with you some perspectives from GLP in a few moments. If we're going to be successful in our work, this exercise must be a community-wide effort that considers perspectives and input from all corners of our community. For this reason, our starting point in our work was the learning survey that many of you completed in the fall. Thank you again for completing that survey and sharing your insights with us. We've delved deeply into the results of the survey, and now we're using that survey to guide us going forward. Over the coming months, as we continue to analyze the survey results, we'll begin to draft our strategy, and then we'll test our strategy with focus groups, including parents and faculty, and even some students. In the spring, we'll work towards a final draft of our strategy with a list of implementation priorities. Finally, in June, assuming all goes well, the board will formally adopt the strategy, along with plans for oversight and metrics to ensure that we are progressing against our priorities. So let me close now by thanking you again for your engagement in this process and reiterate how excited we are about what lies ahead for Greenvale as we turn the page on 100 years. Jesse, I'll turn it back to you.
Thanks, Jeff. As Jeff noted, I'm going to review some of the details from the survey with you. To start, like Jeff and Chris said, thank you for filling it out. We had a tremendous response rate within our community, which included parents, grandparents, board members and former board members, faculty, staff, students, teachers, and alum. The survey gives insights into the current state of the school. It is a 330-page document filled with excellent information that we'll be delving into for a while. Today, I'm going to give you a brief overview that shows you some video clips from our partners at GLP, which presented this information to the board earlier this month. The slides you will see come from GLP. Later in the year, We will provide another meeting to go into greater detail from the survey for those who are interested. Let me start the survey analysis with a quote from an 8th grader. My experience at Greenvale was incredible. My academic and athletic education was phenomenal. Greenvale taught me how to be myself and not let others change who I am. I love this school and always will, and I am hopeful for Greenvale's future of teaching the next generation of students. An excellent education, athletics, and knowing yourself are traits we want our students to have here. Overall, the survey indicates a strong sense of satisfaction with the school, and we see ways that we can still improve. The data makes clear that parents and alum are highly satisfied with the school, with an impressive 91.5% satisfaction rate among all adults, and that teachers feel similarly despite this difficult time. Let's take a look at a video.
I would also like to highlight the 85.2% satisfaction reported by faculty and staff, which would be considered a strong result pre-COVID. So to be reporting those levels of satisfaction in the midst of the third academic year experiencing COVID-related stresses and disruptions is also a strong showing and worthy of noting.
I loved seeing that 100% of our grandparents expressed their highest level of satisfaction with GVS. Here are the words that were most commonly used to describe the school by the adults: community, caring, nurturing, and academic. When asked to stop and pause, you saw a lot of strength at Greenvale. You value strong academics. You stated that the notion of a caring community where adults cultivate learning through connection matters. Students felt the same, expressing extremely high degrees of satisfaction as well. 84.6% from students in grades 5 through 8. We only polled kids from grades 5 and up. And when polled, they used words like fun, welcoming, caring, and kind. This is exactly how we want our kids to feel. So much of this comes through strong connections with each other and adults. This is better understood when hearing specifics around the essential aspects of the Greenvale experience. Let's take a look.
In open-ended items throughout the survey, students and adults identified the following as the essential aspects of the Greenvale experience: a rigorous and challenging academic program with demonstrated secondary school placement outcomes, a warm, welcoming, kind, caring, supportive, and fun community, passionate, skilled, and caring educators, and that refers to faculty, staff, and administration and leadership, any of the adults who are responsible for delivering experience to the students. Also, a lot of note of family connection or legacy at Greenvale, both by students and adults. Comments on location and or proximity to home for students and families as being important, and importantly, campus and facilities that support outdoor learning and events throughout the school day. Adults in particular also value character education and a focus on student wellness and social emotional learning as essential aspects of the Greenvale experience.
Part of what stands out is the balance felt between a child feeling known and wanting to be challenged. In addition, there's a clear emphasis on community and your role in it. When someone believes in their community, they're willing to give more to it, leading to powerful learning. And powerful learning is seen by all of you throughout the school.
Speaking of learning generally, students and adults offered a lot of descriptions of powerful learning and named it as what happens at the intersection between dedicated and passionate teachers, really academically motivated students, and that relationship happening in the presence of challenging content. So that is perhaps unsurprising to those of you who speak to the students and educators on a regular basis.
Remember that powerful learning was the backbone of this whole survey. It was exactly what we hoped the respondents would illuminate. It also pointed out to us that character education matters to this community. When asked about the combinations of language and policy that form Greenvale's current identity, such as mission, values, and portrait of a graduate, respondents indicated that the current languages does largely resonate with how they authentically experience Greenvale. This helps us know that any revisions of these things should retain some key elements. It's easy to focus on the impressive percentages on this slide. I instead want to look at the lowest marks on the slide, which relate to DEI efforts. This makes sense since the work in this area is in the early stages of being crafted, so complete clarity is not yet expected. Our idea here is that, unlike other schools that have adopted off-the-shelf, top-down solutions devised by consultants with little understanding of the communities where these solutions will be deployed, we will together build progress starting from a broad base of support. Interestingly, GLP also noted that in their experience, there's less polarization and more consensus on these matters in our community than in other private schools that they advise. This is a strong foundation in which to develop and operationalize commitment. At the same time, the survey is clear that this is work that the community values and wants to continue to be explored and refined. Given that the Greenvale experience leads to powerful learning, what can we learn from all of this, and what can we do to get even better? Plenty. Here are some of the recommendations that came from these insights.
We'd offer this as the one slide concise summary of what we saw. Greenvale is a strong school with a happy and engaged community, both students and adults, that deeply values and is committed to the past, present, and future of Greenvale. Significant emotional attachment to the institution. That said, there are some opportunities for continuous improvement that will fortify the foundation for the future. We are recommending that Greenvale design strategy with attention to the community-wide desire to increase opportunities to gather, bond, and we put reconnect because there were comments about how the blip of COVID has impacted the community. Continuous clarification and advancement of learning design, and by that we mean pedagogy, curriculum, and assessment. And then leaning into character education as a deeply valued asset that can be more deliberately integrated across learning and explicitly linked to diversity, equity, and inclusivity aims in a way that leans into that shared value for the community.
A community-wide desire to increase opportunities to gather, bond, and reconnect. The survey results remind us of something we already know about Greenvale. Families value being a part of this community as much as the children do. They want to participate in school life and interact with other adults as much as possible. The strategic plan will offer the framework to devise more ways to foster next-level community building. Continuous clarification and advancement of learning design, pedagogy, curriculum, and assessment at Greenvale. We have the opportunity to rethink how we present what we do in the classroom. How are we framing and communicating what we teach in each classroom, and why? Where can this be refined in the trajectory of curriculum design over 12 grades, subject by subject? Just because we are clear on this administratively, it is beneficial for all of us to make this more accessible to those who want to understand it better. Character education as a deeply valued asset that can be more deliberately integrated and linked to diversity, equity, and inclusivity aims. The survey results are clear. Our community values building character, and within this sees the importance of inclusivity and belonging. The results are equally clear that our community believes that we can do more on diversity, equity, and inclusion, particularly as it relates to the notions of global citizenship. Now, as we come close to the end, let's move back to some direct quotes from the survey. I hope GVS continues teaching young people how to be their best selves and strives as students, athletes, artists, anything they want, they can learn and excel at GVS. Look to and embrace the future, but incorporate the core traditions and history of the school, which contributes to its uniqueness and strength. Ensure that our children embody a love for learning and curiosity, goodness and knowledge, respect for others, excellence. Start to teach the children the self-reliance on how to learn. These are great insights into who we are and what we should do. So what are the next steps? As Jeff mentioned, by June, just in time to kick off our Centennial school year, we will have a clearer mission statement, better articulated values, a vision for the future, and begin to think about strategic choices we need to make in order to execute all of this. Now let me take a step back and just say how excited I am. I think I speak for the board in this as well. If Greenvale is in a great state now, and by many measures discussed tonight, it is, let's stop and appreciate that we are poised to make it even better. We owe it to our long history of continuous reflection and betterment to do just this. We owe it to everyone who has believed in the school for 100 years to keep at it, to keep refining the vision of exceptional pre-nursery through 8th grade education. It is an exciting time to be at Greenvale. Thank you. Now, let's turn back to Chris to hear more about the board and how it is supporting all of this.
Thank you, Jesse. The board's support for Greenvale comes principally through the strength of the trustees with whom I have the great honor and privilege to serve. There are 19 of us currently, and some of my fellow colleagues spend up to 150 to 200 hours every year in the service of the school. I so deeply appreciate their expertise, their intelligence, their professionalism, and the time that they spend on all matters for the school. So let me start by thanking my fellow trustees, and I'll give them a round of applause. And that was Jesse. Let me continue by giving you some updates and some exciting new developments that have happened in the board in the past year. And speaking to this point about the strength of our board members, let me start by introducing you to two new board members. I'm going to bring up, and hopefully you see, our Hollywood squares of boards of trustees. Let me introduce you first to Kate Durgee, who you would see as you look at the screen on the left side. Kate is an expert in public relations and brand consulting, who currently owns her own firm. She's the vice chair of the board of advisors for the Hospital for Special Surgery. She's on the board of Glam for Good, a nonprofit and empowerment platform that creates social impact through beauty and style. She's a member of the board of the Boys and Girls Club of Glen Cove, and finally she graduated with honors from Hamilton College. I'd also like to introduce you to our newest board member, who joined halfway through the year, last year, Taylor Robinson. He's somewhere in the middle between Conrad Schwartz and Hari Rajan. Taylor is with Lexington Partners, a global private equity firm. He's a graduate of Trinity College, where he captained several of their NCAA national championship squash teams. I will not be playing him in squash. He's a graduate of St. Paul's, and importantly, he's a graduate of the Greenville School. Actually having graduated Greenville as an 8th grader after I graduated college, which is depressing. He's also a member of the Foreign Policy Association and a past president of the St. Anthony Trust of Hartford, an educational nonprofit. I made 3 jokes there, nobody laughed. Okay. I would also like to talk to you about some structural changes on the board that I think are exciting to report. We do our work on the board principally through 3 things. 1, board meetings, they happen 9 times a year. 2, through standing or permanent committees of the board, and then also through task forces. And task forces are temporary committees that we stand up to meet a particular non-recurring pressing need. I'm excited to report tonight on the formation of several task forces. You've already heard about our effort at the board level in support of strategic planning. So in that vein, we created a strategic planning task force. You've heard from one of the members tonight, Jeff, and we are, through that task force, supporting the strategic planning process. We have also created a task force dedicated to faculty retention. As I've often said to this group, virtually, and those who are present, our greatest asset at the Greenville School is its faculty. And we are going to, through the work of the Faculty Retention Task Force, see what ways we can pursue to make sure that we continue the excellent faculty that we have by both attracting and retaining the best, including whether or not that means devoting more of the school's resources, financial resources, to that end. And excitingly, we also have a Centennial Task Force dedicated to our 100th anniversary next year, and you'll hear more about that in a little bit. This year, we've also created a new standing committee, a committee for diversity, equity, and inclusion. In the past, we've talked about a DEI task force, which we stood up about 1.5 to 2 years ago to meet a very challenging time in our community and in our country around issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion. It was the right thing at that time to create a task force. Understanding now that diversity, equity, and inclusion is something that we need a long-term commitment to, it's appropriate in this moment to create a standing committee on the board to support the school's efforts in those regards. Finally, I'd like to announce, we have a lot of committees. Finally, I would like to announce the formation of a subcommittee of the Finance Committee. And this subcommittee is going to be dedicated, or is dedicated, to our endowment and thinking about our endowment. The Finance Committee, under Jeff Busconi's leadership, has done an outstanding job, as you'll hear shortly from Hari Rajan, at managing the endowment and growing it. This task force, or this subcommittee, is going to be dedicated to thinking structurally and strategically over the long haul what ways we can make the endowment best serve our community. And I'm very excited about that. I'm excited to announce in that connection that while there will be several board members on that subcommittee, we'll also be joined by certain parents from the community who've agreed to step up and offer us their expertise in support of the important work of that subcommittee. And I'd like to draw your attention to them now and introduce them to you. First, I'd like to introduce you to George Argenti. Thank you for joining the subcommittee. John is with the Gordon Haskett Research Advisors firm. They provide independent research to institutional investors. He's a graduate of Tulane University and earned his MBA at Duke University. Welcome also to the subcommittee to Henry Moriello, who's a partner at Arnold & Portner, a law firm, and is a graduate of the King's College and St. John's Law School. And finally, Jim Gillies, who was a senior advisor at the Wafra Group, an investment firm where he focused on strategic alternative investments. He's currently continuing that work on a consulting basis. He is also a graduate of Hamilton, like Kate Durkee was. A lot of great Hamilton folks here. And he will also be joining the subcommittee. I want to thank them in advance for all the time that I know that they're going to put in. And I do worry that we did a bait and switch on them. I don't think they have an idea of what's in store, but having kind of trapped them, we're appreciative in advance for the time they'll spend. With that, I would like to turn the mic over to Hari Rajan. Hari is a member of our Finance Committee, and he's going to talk to you about the strength of our finances and how well we are positioned for the next 100 years.
Thank you, Chris, and it's a privilege for me to be here this evening to talk to you a little bit about Greenvale's finances on behalf of the board led by Chris, and in particular our finance committee led by Jeff, whose members work very closely and in partnership with Jesse, our finance director, Richard Hurt, and the rest of the Greenvale leadership team. I'm conscious that it's often hard in this forum not to bore people with numbers, and I suspect that risk is particularly high this year when we have so much exciting content around the strategic plan and the Centennial. But the two do go hand in hand because our financial resources are a really important component of our ability to support those initiatives. As Chris said, our overarching message to you is that the financial condition of GVS is very strong. Despite the challenges of COVID, our school has demonstrated remarkable financial resilience and stability. This is due principally to two factors. First, the extraordinary efforts of the Greenvale faculty, staff, and administration in maintaining and conveying the value proposition of a Greenvale education, notwithstanding the many constraints and uncertainties imposed by COVID. Second, the incredible generosity of our community in continuing to make voluntary contributions to support GVS that are an essential component of our financial model. Our numbers for last year demonstrate this very vividly. In fiscal 2020-21, we had $16.25 million of operating expenses. The bulk of these, 72%, were employee salaries, as is always the case. The balance was comprised largely of instructional and facilities costs, as well as, importantly, financial aid, which is a full 10% of our budget and includes tuition remission for our employees. Last year, we added a new category, COVID outlays. And these are expenses specifically incurred to maintain the continuity of in-person learning in a very fluid operating environment. Now, in terms of how we fund these expenses, as a structural matter, it's important to note that while tuition revenues cover a large portion of them, they are not enough to address all of them. We are very dependent on fundraising initiatives, principally our annual fund and the gala, to bridge the gap. And even then, we have an operating deficit every year that needs to be funded through a draw on our endowment. The financial health of Greenvale is dependent on that draw being at sustainable levels. Now, if we rewind to the beginning of the last fiscal year, the revenue outlook was actually quite murky. It was unclear what our enrollment figures would be as both our existing and applicant families grappled with the prospect of prolonged online learning and what it should cost. Secondly, we had questions around the capacity of our community to continue contributing to Greenvale at the levels that they had done in prior years. In the end, however, our actual results outperformed our most optimistic expectations. Through the sheer determination and persistence of Jesse and every member of his team, Greenvale during COVID was able to preserve so much of what makes the Greenvale experience special that not only did we retain a large portion of our existing student base, but we also attracted many new students to Greenvale, largely on the basis of them seeing that a Greenvale education was a significant improvement during COVID on what they were experiencing at their incumbent institutions. The net effect of this was an actual increase in our enrollment numbers and our tuition revenues, such that they covered the same high percentage, in this case 84%, of our expense base as in prior years. Now, on top of that, our community rallied to the cause, and the annual fund raised 25% more than it did in the prior year. In addition, we had a very successful virtual gala, which demonstrates to me something I've always known, which is that only good things happen when we put Chris and Jesse in wigs. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, come to the gala this year. But all jokes apart, those two factors, high enrollment and contributions, covered a full 9% of our expenses. And when you put, fundraising covered a full 9% of our expenses, which when you combine that with tuition revenues staying at that level, we had an operating deficit that was almost identical to the prior fiscal year, about $430,000. And that represented only 3% of our budget
and only a 1.25% draw on our $35 million endowment. That is a very strong result by any standard. Fortunately, these trends have continued into the current fiscal year. As Jesse mentioned earlier, our enrollment levels are even higher this year, and with your continued support to the annual fund and the gala, we hope to achieve similar or even better results when we close the financial year in June. Now, what does this mean for the future? Our financial strength couldn't come at a better time. As you heard from Jeff, we are currently in the process of designing a strategic plan that will launch Greenvale into its next 100 years. If we are able to maintain this financial performance, and obviously market conditions permitting, our endowment has the potential to not only serve as a mechanism to balance our annual budgets, but also to serve as a powerful source of support for bold strategic initiatives that we hope to undertake across the various areas that Jeff mentioned, including teaching and learning, community engagement and traditions, and character development. The possibilities are many, and with your support, we can make them happen. Thank you, and I'll now turn it over to Missy to talk about the Centennial.
Thank you, Hari. What an amazing report. And perfect segue to talk about the school's Centennial. As you've heard a few times this evening, the school is marking its 100th year next school year. There has never been a better time to be a part of the Greenvale community. We expect festivities to kick off at the start of next school year and continue throughout the year, culminating in a big celebration in the spring of 2023. Our events will include something for everyone, for our students, their families, for our current and former faculty and staff, and of course, our alumni. So stay tuned. Exciting plans are in the works, and there's going to be a lot of opportunities to get involved. In this moment for our school, there is so much to honor and celebrate. Our school's motto is Optima Durant, the best endures. The Centennial is a moment, an opportunity for us to reflect on what that really means. And it's also a challenge for us as we look ahead to what the next 100 years will bring for the school. Since its founding, the school has graduated close to 4,000 alumni, many of whom remain incredibly involved and committed to Greenvale. Now, for a school that ends in 8th grade, I think that's pretty remarkable. Our alumni often tell us that they credit Greenvale for fostering their love of learning, for cultivating their sense of self, their confidence, their commitment to others, and to the broader community. With that, we'll end tonight's State of the School address with a short video that we put together for our 95th anniversary. As we've been preparing for our Centennial and for our strategic plan, we've had lots of opportunities to reflect on the school's history. We thought this video really brought into focus why the best really does endure here at Greenvale.
I graduated at Greenvale in 1943. I love the school.
Greenvale is a school that I think has probably contributed more than any other place I've been to as a person and as a citizen.
I'm very proud to be an alumnus.
I had a time at Greenvale that probably is the best of the years that I did in teaching and administrating and leading schools. It really was.
Greenvale is a school that makes kids happy.
My class, I just remember, was this, really gifted group of kids. And a lot of the people I met at Greenvale are, still my closest friends today.
The friendships that are founded there can be lifelong friendships.
My friends from Greenvale are still some of my best friends to this day.
And I remember all the girls in my class. We are still Greenvale. We high blue, even when you're almost 91.
In about 1974, they allowed girls and boys to be in the same classes. And at first, when I was teaching, there was sort of open warfare between the boys and the girls. But that finally settled down.
I always remember like an excitement of walking up the steps to the, kind of the grand lunchroom.
I remember Roger, the wonderful cook that cooked us Mississippi mud and
calf's liver and tomato aspic.
There's poached perch and broccoli hollandaise.
We had a camp out, including, I think, the tent that Peter Zaloom took to Woodstock.
And the toboggan slide. I really loved the toboggan slide. I was up near 25A in the back behind the play fields.
Like I remember The King and I, for example, was what we did in 4th grade, and it was just like this very elaborate production.
I mean, I remember going to see the Nutcracker in Manhattan with our 3rd grade class.
I remember the boat race, that love that it was a family activity as well as with all your friends.
It's pretty amazing the experiences that that students get to have because they're a part of Greenville.
It's just a great place. I'm very happy to have been here for a long time.
It was a place that really had the right balance, I think, between seriousness and being fun.
You get that balance between feeling supported and nurtured, but also bringing out your best qualities and really striving for excellence.
I find that if you can have fun with them and make it exciting, then you can teach them.
You know, we were really expected to rise to the best of our teaching and our connection with the students.
I treat my children like they're my own kids, and that's how I was treated by the teachers here when I went to Greenville.
I always tried to convey that I love them and their success is important to me.
Seeing the teacher's passion as well, that they cared about your growth, they cared about your learning. It's pretty powerful at that age.
The attention to detail and the focus on the kids and individual needs for learning and growth, and it was just, I think that's really unparalleled in any school.
But I was so well prepared that a lot of the work I had at Miss Porter's was repeat.
It was an incredibly rigorous education in the best way.
We were reading the Aeneid in Latin when I was 12 or 13 years old.
It just felt like I was ready for all of the AP classes that I took.
And it was clear to me that foundation was better than other classmates that I would have down the road.
I think it's academics, but I think it's way beyond that. I think it's caring about your school, caring about the people. All of that stays with you.
But those qualities of fairness and decency and good judgment are the sorts of things that really were focused on at Greenville and that I carry with me today.
It was a clean expectation that students would exercise honesty and, emulate the teachers. I mean, kids rose to the occasion.
That focus on character and the development of the whole person and the development of those values, that's sort of the unchanging anchor that makes Greenville special.
Greenvale's always been able to adjust to the changes in the society or in the technology around them.
I think Greenville, the continuity of hiring the best faculty and the best, most devoted people seems to have continued.
We never stay stagnant. We try to make Greenvale the best place it can be.
It's a very exciting time in education. I think we're going to be in good shape and continue to be in good shape because of leadership and commitment by the people who are here.
There's something to say about the families that send their kids to Greenville.
And I don't think sometimes you realize it until you're an adult, but how much it all meant to you.
Things stay with you from Greenville for the rest of your life.
Be a good guy. Be a leader. Be a team player. And to have school spirit. And to be grateful for the education that your parents gave you.
Thank you all for tuning in tonight, and good night.
Good night.